Alrighty, so we good to go?
Yeah. Did you start? Oh yeah, okay.
State of the world got you down?
Boy, does it ever.
Have you recently experienced the urge to join a picket line or read a manifesto?
Yeah, I have experienced that.
If this sounds like you, then you've come to the right place. I'm Remy.
And I'm Jaimie.
And you're listening to...
So, I guess I've been radicalized?
A show where we talk about politics, organizing, and world events from an anti-capitalist lens. Join us each week and learn how you
can get organized today.
Alrighty.
What's up?
Welcome back. It's been over a year.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. One episode out. Now, in a completely different place.
In a different city.
Yeah.
Many things have transpired.
Yeah.
We actually recorded, 4 episodes the first time?
It's
and
almost.
Yeah. And then technical difficulties, they, couldn't be uploaded.
Technical difficulties.
Very much technical difficulties. So,
Yeah.
re-release. We've also decided to change the name of the podcast because we would like to cast a wider net.
Yes. Some self-reflection on what, what that means and everything. And
yeah, just to make sure that we're, want to at least make some kind of change with the podcast. So I think if we can choose a title that will allow a wider audience to be introduced to these ideas, I think it'll be a more effective use of our time and information that we're putting out there. So we are now, we were the Commie Diaries for the first episode, and we are now, So I Guess I've Been Radicalized. So
yeah.
Welcome back.
Hope you get radicalized.
Join us.
Join us.
To work towards a better world. Speaking of which. So,
nice
today,
segue.
Oh, thank you.
We didn't put the sign up.
You know what? We never released the video for the first one anyway.
Oh, yeah, right. So that wouldn't really matter. But they just set it up. We had a sign in the other ones.
With the episode title, so you could see it.
And it would fit nicely right there.
Oh.
But
Next time. Next time. We'll get the sign.
It's okay. Everyone makes mistakes.
I was going to quote the next lyric, but I don't remember what it is. It's perfect. You live and you work it. You again and again until you make it right.
Isn't that Nobody's Perfect? Alright.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect. Living the world.
Yeah.
Is that what I said?
Yes.
No, everybody makes mistakes. Is what I said.
Oh, everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah, that's also a lyric, but I don't remember. Anyway, classic.
Today's episode topic is... Oh, actually, I think before we get into the episode topic, might be a good idea to comment on some world events that are going on right now.
Yeah.
So we are filming this on October 18th. The Israel-Palestinian conflict has been really ramping up in the last few weeks, and, free Palestine. Obviously, this is a complicated topic, and as uneducated people, I don't think it's, our place really undereducated on this subject specifically. But, oppressors the worldwide are trying to, turn off the media cover, not let anybody see what's going on, so that way they can enact whatever plans that they have, stealing resources, stealing land, and... this is definitely something, for once the world's eyes are actually open and people are able, in real time, with the genocide going on, able to see what's actually happening. So, I see there's been a lot of, controversy on TikTok that I've noticed about, people being like, oh, tune out, take the weekend off from your phone, but,
Yep, you have the privilege to do that. You gotta recognize it. Not everyone can do that. And people are being bombed and killed. And don't do that to other human beings.
And,
it's insane.
We live in relative safety here in the West, if that's where you're coming to us from. And, even if it's just a small ounce of bandwidth to not look away, this is what our tax dollars go towards here. And we have to remember that our tax dollars, here in Canada a bit, mostly down south in America, go towards guns and bombs for the Israeli government to use against people who have lived there for generations. So,
innocent people.
Innocent people. So if the least you can do is not look away, do that. If you can, share footage, let other people see what's really going on there. Donate to the cause, show up to rallies, whatever you can do, because, we have the opportunity to at least try to push things towards getting the Israeli government to back down. And if we can, we should.
Mm-hmm.
On that delightful note.
I agree. Now,
this episode's about revolutionary optimism.
Because there is a good side. There's bright side to things. Hey, future Jaimie here. Just want to clarify, not saying that the war between Israel and Palestine is a good thing, and that there are good things that come from it. That kind of came off wrong. Please stop that. And anyway, continue.
Maybe not this specific thing,
but or at least hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hope
for the future.
So, I'm gonna start this with a question for you.
Okay.
Do you have hope for the future?
Oh, well. That's a complicated thing for me.
Oh,
we have,
sorry.
We have our own sessions of the podcast just by ourselves all the time. So.
Yep. Also, I have speech issues. I'm not making fun of people with speech issues. Sorry, it's become a habit. I may stutter here and there.
But I am trying to do that.
It's a valiant effort. It's really fucking hard.
It's hard, yeah.
What feels... What things do you have the most and, least hope for? Like, when you think about the future and you want to, just give up and say fuck it, what kind of stuff does that tend to be around?
Governmental help for citizens and capitalism.
The big
that
C.
is just nothing is made for us anymore. It's for other people to make money, and just getting out of that. I feel like it's gonna be either really, really bad to get out of it too, which is also not fun, or it'll just be like that forever. So depressing in both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you do have hope for the future, just in your life in general at the moment?
I mean, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but I guess, just with the way the system works, I am a very privileged person. I have a lot of privilege. I have a lot of, capital in the sense of, I know that I'm gonna be okay, because I have been, and I've consistently had that idea about my life, but now understanding where that it's all going to be okay comes from, it's that's kind of depressing too, but I know I'm going to be okay. It's just other people that are not going to be.
Yeah, fair enough. I think when I think about the future and the things that are most making me want to say fuck it, climate change is a really big one. I have been having quite a bit of climate anxiety for the last couple years. I think the first thing that really sparked a lot of climate anxiety in me was the Texas storms that happened a couple years ago, where with the power going out and people having to gather around candles and shit.
I think it happened last year too. It just
Again?
It's continually happening. It's just obviously the first one is the more documented one, right?
Of the entire fucking grid shut down.
Yeah.
And, where we used to live in Manitoba, I would say we were pretty ready, because we get natural, our weathers and temperatures are so extreme that we're used to being prepared for, our city's got snow plows, and we're ready to sandbag for floods. Tornadoes are a new one.
Yeah, just throw a new thing in there. Why not?
But yeah, I just think about especially for Manitoba, where we're from. I think I'll always want to go back there, despite us being somewhere else now. The biggest thing for the prairies is just drought. Everything drying up and turning into a desert, and, that's really scary to think about. And just, like, all of my friends and family, and, like, I'm a person who wants to do a lot when I see a problem. I love working on problems and trying to figure out how to fix them. And, I kind of see a way forward. My plans for building a little off-grid commune for everybody, affectionately titled Pussy Manor. Sign up today. But, building something like that, even if I put in a lot of my own labor hours, requires a certain amount of money. And also all the people who are not able to have the capacity to think that far ahead, or the people who are, but just don't think it's real, or don't give a shit, or just constant feeling of like, oh, it's not going to happen to me, so there's nothing that I should do. And I wake up and I'm like, we should be preparing for climate change right now. But then I'm just like, well, I guess I gotta, like, look for a job and get into administration. Should I do a master's degree? Like, will the world exist in 10 years?
Yeah.
What should I care about? Because, like, there's also my material existence right now. Like, I need a bit of money. I need an amount of capital to live, to pay rent, and to buy groceries. But also, like, oh my god, the world's probably going to end in, like, 5 years.
Yeah, 10. Honestly. 10? Yeah.
So...
everything's going to crash.
Yeah, that's not great. Something that has been kind of giving me hope, especially lately, is, I think class consciousness is really growing.
True.
In a way that we haven't seen in decades, like, with all of the people coming out in support of, like, the writers' strike and SAG-AFTRA, not to mention all of, like, especially in the States, like, the General Motors, I believe it was, and then, just, like, we're seeing more and more, like, unionization efforts happening, and people realizing, like, you don't just put your head down and wait for it to get better. If we come together, we can demand, better things, and people are actually sympathetic towards the strikers, unlike a lot of times, like, I know when, like, the Postal Service or the liquor commission employees go on strike, everyone's just like, yeah, I guess I hope they get whatever they want, but it's a real inconvenience, I wish they'd finish soon, type thing, and that still kind of carries forward. But I remember before it used to be like, oh my gosh, they're so greedy, because that you would hear that a lot about striking workers, and now people are like, yeah, they should get what they deserve. So I think change is on the horizon, and it's not only a possibility for bad. There is possible for, people to finally, like, actually come together. Public opinion is shifting.
Which is, like, I guess in terms of what I was worried about, there is hope for people to come up and conquer that kind of thing. But yeah, when it comes to climate change and shit, that's like, I can't really reverse that, unfortunately.
It's definitely pretty difficult to to see a way through that, because it's not an individual, even if, your entire workplace unionized, we need multiple world governments. But, I'd like to do a whole episode on that, I think, about just, like, climate change stuff, and I think we'll put a pin in this, coming back to climate change.
Yeah, sounds good. It's a big topic.
It is a big topic, and you know what, I think there are things that we can be doing, like, preparing our communities to be more resilient in the face of natural disasters and stuff. Anyway, we can get into it another time.
Yes.
So, from that, over the summer, I read a lot more literature, as you know. I talked very passionately every time I started a new book. One of the first books that I read was a book titled Revolutionary Optimism. It was a collection of essays written by... I'm going to edit that in because I don't remember.
Move your mouth.
Revolutionary Optimism, Western Nihilism by Andrei VLTchek.
I'll do my best, but I make no promises. I'll put it in the description for sure. It's a collection of essays just talking about, like, revolutionary optimism, what does it mean, also, like, the lived experience of people who, like, continue to fight for rights and whatnot. And one of the things that, in the first essay in that book is just talking about how, like, nihilistic the West is. The West including, like, what you would refer to as first world countries, so, like, Canada, the US, Europe, most of Europe, essentially. are all conditioned to be so nihilistic. So, like, nihilism is kind of like, it's like a philosophical term, there's a lot of things, but basically just, like, thinking that everything is meaningless and just the sense of, like, there's nothing to be done, you know? And I feel like that's the way most people feel. Mm-hmm. You know, most people, when you bring up all of these issues, they're like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah, because it's interesting, because I wouldn't say that, like, my family is nihilistic, but they're definitely, like, an it is what it is type of people. Which
like, they haven't given up, but it's just, like, none of my business.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, that comes from other things, too, but... but yeah, for sure, nothing to be done. Mm-hmm. Whatever. I'm not suffering, so...
Oh, somebody else's problem.
That, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or, I'll take care of me and my family,
mm-hmm.
you know.
I worked hard, and my family's fine.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like even for the people that do care, it becomes super easy to get burnt out. Like, I know, like, that's something that you struggle with a lot, of just, mm-hmm. like, coming to the realization that the world is, like, really fucked up in so many ways, and just being like, oh my god, it's so overwhelming.
There's
like, what do I even, like, start with it? And once again, it just kind of makes you feel like, I can't fix the whole thing, therefore, it's, like, too much to do anything, because what's the point?
Yeah, definitely.
And I think the interesting thing about this mindset is that, like, so our apartment building had a fire, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
2 weeks? Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
One of the apartments in our building caught fire, and the alarm went off. I was the only one home, so I left. And we were all standing outside, and the fire was on the other side of the building. And every time, whenever I've been in a situation that is, like, an emergency, people step up. You know, people care. People work towards helping each other. Somebody realized that their dog was still upstairs, and somebody rushed into the building to go get them and to go let them out. Or they heard a cat meowing on the upper floor, and people went back into the burning building, knowing how risky it was, because these people knew. They were hesitant to go in, and they went in to go try to save as much as they could. In an emergency situation, people didn't just scatter and mind their own business. People were walking around, checking in on each other. And every situation like that I've been in, that is how people react. Our natural instinct is to run in and care. But, you know, society, like, everything that is taught to us teaches us that, you know, I think we kind of touched on this before, that, like, people are bad. People are going to screw you over. You can't rely on anybody.
Or people, and I remember mentioning this before, but I also do not remember what it's called, but, like, people help people only because they feel better about themselves, you know?
Like,
and it's not it's just validation for themselves, like, oh, I'm the hero.
Like the like savior complex
kind
of thing?
kind of be,
Ulterior motives?
Yeah, I guess it's, a form of that kind of thing, so it's like, you know, that isn't really helping, like, I mean, if everyone's doing that, then sure, everyone's helping each other, but it's just the basis of it.
And it's so interesting that, like, that's not our natural instinct, and it has taken, but all of the media that we're exposed to, like, I think one of the main reasons that our society is so hands-off with issues, even if they're the kinds of issues that we could individually, like, contribute towards fixing, but, you know, we raise our hands and be like, oh, that's too much, is because, you know, like, I think people really underestimate the role that media plays in our lives. We all want to think that we're immune to propaganda, that we're immune to being advertised to. But for the last 120 years, you know, companies have invested millions of dollars into researching the best way to manipulate our choices without us realizing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Marketing. Exactly.
Marketing.
And it's not taught anywhere that's what it's meant to do.
Yeah, like media literacy?
Yeah, and, like, taking my business course and, like, just learning, like, surface level, but, like, learning how deep it could go, and, like, the amount of money that is invested into that by, like, any company, including the government, like, including government forces. Like, it's just...
It's crazy.
Crazy. I can't believe it. It's awful.
And we're exposed.
I don't trust anything. Like,
Yeah.
I had trust issues before. Honey.
And now that you're, like, seeing behind the curtain, it's like, oh my god, it's even worse.
Yeah, I know.
And, like, not just, like advertising and stuff, but also, like the news cycle, like thinking back to before the internet was such a prevalent place for people to get news. Like, I don't know, my family didn't really watch news, but did you guys?
Big, yeah, my dad loved 6 o'clock news, put it on, sit in his chair, yeah, watch everything.
And one of the things about, like, traditional news is that, like, you know, if it bleeds, it leads. They are constantly pushing negative stories about the worst things that are happening because they know that, like, our psychologically, you know, we take more note of negative things to help us survive. Like, that's a mechanism for us to remember things that are dangerous to us so we can live again in the future. And it takes advantage of that. They choose the worst stories to keep our attention, but then day in, day out, we see these horrible things, and a lot of the times happening halfway across the world, and there's nothing that they can do, nothing that we can do, and it just desensitizes us and makes us really be like, oh, well, I guess that's just the way the world works. Terrible things are happening all the time, so far away from me that there's nothing I can do. Or it's happening to me right now, and it's such a big problem that nobody's really planned for or thought of.
Or it's like fear-mongering, just make you afraid, and so you don't take as many risks or don't fight back.
Oh, you're so right about that,
It's all,
keeping us from feeling like we're in a secure enough position to take risks, to take a leap, to actually make action, to say something definitive and put anything up to make yourself vulnerable in any kind of way.
Well, like, and going back to your point on how, like, it isn't, like, it is human nature to help people and to help, and, like, and I mean, obviously, it's like, I surround myself with people that have similar views to me, but, like, I know a lot of people, and most of the people I've talked about this, like, understand and agree with us, that, like, that's how it is. It's like, so many people know this, and if they were just in a position to actually do something, like, financially, mentally, like, all of this stuff that society collectively has put us into the spot where we're not that way, to, like, what? I don't, and then the whole, like, I'm gonna go on a tangent, but then, like, the whole alt-right pipeline of, like, oh, wake up, like, and, like, just, like, you are the one that's being, like, honey, it's insane. Like, I just can't, like, I don't understand.
Yeah, like, something that, like, I went to an organizing meeting for the first time last night, and we were talking about a lot of topics, and it made me think about a lot of new topics in different ways, and, like, I was like, damn, as soon as I said it, I'm like, I really popped off with that one. Just about, like, the alt-right pipeline is because how it's become so prominent, especially here in Canada, we've seen a huge insurgence of, like, United States right-wing ideology. Ideology, what a fucking term.
Yeah.
But just, like, the politics of the conservative U.S., the radical conservative U.S. making its way into Canada very rapidly over the last, like, year and a half.
Yeah.
And
crazy.
Because people can sense how fucked up shit is. And their alt-right pipeline is giving them a reason.
Yeah.
It's giving them an answer, someone to blame, something to, like, oh, if we just get the reptilian overlords out, if we just blah, 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 then everything will be okay if we just do this one thing.
The gays.
Yeah, if we just get rid of trans kids in school, then maybe my kid will love me again.
Yeah, exactly.
My kid hates me not because I treat them poorly, because I have unhealed wounds and I don't know how to love them well. It's because they've been transed, and they hate me because they've been taught to by their teachers or whatever.
Shoved down their throats,
Rather than realizing, you know, the younger generations are just becoming more and more emotionally mature, thanks to, or not mature, but at least emotionally aware, thanks to a lot of the media and whatnot that we've had access to.
Exactly.
It's just giving them a boogeyman to hate against.
It is, and the concept of othering too. It's like, I don't understand this, and so it's bad and it's scary, and I'm not going to take the time to understand it. Rather, especially when there's also, like, religious components to it as well, and stuff that you've grown up with your whole life and you've been told it's bad, and you can't, there's such a fear in being, like, agreeing that something you've grown up with your entire life is bad, and that
then you have
there is
to,
flaws in it.
Yeah.
Because then that's your whole life. That's your whole sense of self.
And what else do you have to
Don't do
deconstruct
that.
if you recognize one part of it is flawed? You know, the card tower crumbles.
Exactly, and you have to keep, and it's like all like self-sustaining too. Like you need to keep yourself secure and safe, and that's just survival instinct, and so both mentally as well. But.
And I think another thing that keeps us very like, things are shit, is the fact that like media, in addition to only reporting bad shit, like really undervalues positive stories or misrepresents or frames them to actually be bad. So like we don't really like the way that the way that media will frame like strikes and stuff as like they will push the narrative that, you know, oh, this is an inconvenience for everybody. Why are you disrupting our lives, rather than recognizing like the humanity that these workers are putting in so much and not even getting enough to sustain their families. So they're fighting for their own rights as they have the right to do. And it's constantly spun in a way that like pushes people to work against their own self-interest. And also with like they also bury when things actually do like win. Like one of the things, like this is an example that I wrote down for number one. So do you remember all the like, this was like just maybe slightly before our time, but all of the issues with ozone, the ozone layer having a hole in it.
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, in school they would push that and stuff. Like,
so we actually enacted international regulation to reduce, I think it's CFOs, which is the cause that was deteriorating the ozone layer, and the ozone layer's recovered.
Oh, okay.
We fixed that problem.
Oh, well.
You know?
See, and you don't know about that.
You don't even know about it. Why didn't we throw a party? Why didn't we set, International Day of recognizing, yes, we accomplished this. You know, we put in the work, and this was a big issue that we solved. So when you think about all the other climate-related issues, you think like, oh, there's nothing to be done, but like, we were able to do something.
Yeah, but then I also see the side of it of being like, because especially if you're in that generation, and then now, of like, oh, this was a huge problem, and like this was climate change. Now we fixed it. We're done. Like we've done. Like it's not an ongoing thing, which obviously it is. But like and I mean, I'm guilty for this too, of just like finding a solution and then being done with it because I want to be done with it. And so if there's individuals that would have taken that, and obviously like that's not the point, but I could see it being taken in
when you think about it on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we are just never really getting to see success stories also that are applicable to everybody and not just individuals. Like the only kinds of success stories you really see is like individual rags to riches.
Yeah, but then I'm sure that's tied into Western culture and individualism and capitalism and all of that stuff. Like I'd be interested to hear and see, and like obviously, and I don't know any knowledge about this whatsoever, but like different countries' newscasting frequencies and things and what that entails, you know, compared to ours, because
ours is Canada's just like 4 oligopolies in a trench coat, so like all of our news is basically pretty centralized.
Yeah,
well, but the US too, where we also get a lot of news from. So
and the whole thing with it being banned on social media in Canada now too, and I think like I mean I've just kind of taken whatever I see on social media in regards to that, but it was the idea that it was to protect individuals or Canadians from
being able to be tampered with from Meta.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it was one Meta specifically, I guess.
Yeah, Meta is the one. Was it Meta and Google? Or
I think I remember hearing Meta, but I don't know anything.
Yeah, just that not allowing, like we put in place certain protective like regulations for Canadian news broadcasters, and the tech companies would not yield to our regulations, and therefore removed all the media.
Because I just saw something the other day from like CTV on TikTok.
Well, so TikTok, maybe it's just Meta.
It's only Meta, yeah.
Which is Facebook and Instagram.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
You know what? Not super informed on this. Gonna have to look it up again.
Yeah, no, just what I've obviously observed.
And the other component of media, I think media is such a big contributor to just the feeling of there is no hope. Because also like I feel like I really came to realize like not too long ago just like the crazy impact of TV and movies in a way that I feel like we don't recognize day to day. And just
I think about that daily. Like just
like
impact of
how
movies.
Influential it is, because there are so many aspects of life that feel universal, but we've only ever experienced through TV and movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many of us would know what the inside of an operating room looks like, or the other side of a police precinct, or what a court of law would look like on the inside as a lawyer if we weren't exposed to it through, like, TV and movies? And this is all sanitized. This is not actually what the inside of these things look like. And, like, most of any movie that's able to go mainstream is because some big company has put enough money into it to distribute it widely.
Yeah.
And they will only distribute things that are not going to jeopardize their bottom line.
Yeah.
We only ever get to see narratives and movies and stories about one way of life, and that is the American dream, essentially.
Yeah.
Which is family with a house and a dog, and they have friends, and they sometimes go outside, but one day the happy ending is always going back to your little house.
Yep. And also having, like, the ordinary person having the courage to fight back against the bad thing.
The bad guy who they only have to defeat once in order to, like, success has happened.
Yeah, or like a concept of something, and I think about that again in the alt-right pipeline of, like, these people watch movies and then think that they can apply that same narrative to their life.
Subconsciously,
really
even if it's not, like, reality, but, like, that's the only narrative where we're shown about how change happens.
Yeah, like, I get encouraged when I watch movies that I like. I do that, so of course other people do, and it just can be so dangerous in that way, and especially when, like, nothing in media is looking out for us. They just want money. And so why would they even think about the influence that they could have?
Yeah, and we're also, like, we're taught that thinking about things in this way through our media is paranoid, because the other thing that you often see in media tropes is that people who care about others, people who are optimistic, people who are hopeful, are always painted as, like, naive dreamers who are unrealistic, and once life hits them, they'll really turn their ways.
Or conspiracy theorists, like the crazy conspiracy theorist in media too, and how they're just painted as being, like, a crazy person,
crackpot,
like a mentally ill person.
Yeah.
And they're usually, I don't know if certain, I don't know much.
Sorry, the lamps might flicker.
We're back.
Okay, so the screen went dark for part of it. I don't really want to record that, so maybe we'll just put a, like, hang in there.
Oh yeah. Technical difficulties.
So we're back. We're not going to re-record. The screen's just going to be dark for that little thing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
How long was it? Did you see?
It's a couple minutes.
Okay. Well,
it's not bad.
Skip it if you want.
Yeah. I think I fixed it. So yeah. All right. Anyway, we left off talking about how movies frame people who question things, like conspiracy theorists, as crackpots who are crazy, and also that they will frame anybody who does have hope that things can change. People who are activists, people who care about strangers, or just people in general, are framed as naive and dumb and just unrealistic with the world. People who want to change things for the better are stupid, and they should just roll over and take it like everybody else, get back to work.
Yeah, definitely.
And I feel like this is so interesting. Like, obviously, it happens because the people who have movies, the same people who own all of these media corporations, the people who approve scripts and do the marketing, and the people who have the final say, are all rich people who have a vested interest in making sure the current system, which is profiting for them in a way that they have never been able to achieve before, are not going to greenlight projects that show a different way of life is possible.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the ones that do are at, like, the small film festivals.
Exactly.
Because you can't like, stop people.
Yeah, it's not going to be a blockbuster.
But no, it's not going to,
And I feel like this all really contributes to the fact that, like, change is achievable. It is possible to make a difference. Oh, I've got a great analogy for this. When I worked for a certain corporation, not gonna name drop.
No, I don't work there anymore.
Yeah. But I worked there over the pandemic, and one of my jobs was to clean carts. It was a grocery chain. I would clean the carts and wait for customers to come in, and I would make sure that they were wearing a mask, give them one if they didn't have one, and wipe off all the carts. Wipe off all the carts and give it to them, and then they would go into the store. And honestly, I'm very impressed. Like, our little town...
Oh, yeah, no.
Full of great people. I only had issues with maybe, 3 people the entire time I was doing that, which was basically the entire, lockdown phase of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. But while I was there, I thought the floor to the side of the entrance, I always thought it was concrete, because I just looked at it, it was all, slate gray, the same colors like you'd see as exposed concrete. And one day I made it all the way to, we completely ran out of carts, so I got all the way to the back there, and I realized that it was, linoleum tiles. There was just a bunch of squares. And I was like, oh my god, it's tile. Had no idea. It was so dirty, I didn't know. So then, in my free time, because I was bored, because I was just standing there for hours. God, I hated that. I took my cloth, and I'd clean just one tile perfectly in a square, so that way you could see it was a tile. I cleaned it so it was, perfectly, a white little thing. And nobody... A white little thing. It was very obviously a tile.
Yeah.
And... the floor had been like that the entire time that I worked there for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And when I did that, after 1 week and a weekend, they came through and completely buffed it clean. Mm. That obviously is just a metaphor. But change is possible. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't take revolution, which obviously we still want to push for a better world in drastic ways. But even small actions lead up to bigger actions. And I think that narrative, in a way that actually benefits the community, is one that is not often shown. Those kinds of changes only ever lead to individual success, or it's a fade to black and everything worked out, and you never actually get to see the working it out phase. Yeah. You don't get to see the people, rebuilding their communities. You don't get to see the infrastructure of aiding those who need help, because in our minds, if you ask people why is this not shown in movies, they'll say it's boring. But it's only boring because we frame it that way. It's not something that we're used to thinking of as heroic. We think of heroic as the person who rushes into insert action movie hero, fucking Die Hard, ready to slide across the floor, one man against the world. Well, if you explode enough stuff, you'll win, and then the day is saved.
And I feel like that's just, again going back to the running into a burning building thing. That's the thing that we've seen in media and movies. That's the thing that they push. That is exciting. That gives value to you.
Everybody else sits aside, but only one person who's brave enough can go in. But it's everybody.
Or then the stuff that is still helpful, that is portrayed as boring, then no one wants to do that because it's boring. Because they won't get the validation that they want from it.
And the crazy thing is, it doesn't have to be, because it's not boring. It is beautiful, the way that people care for each other. But it's so fucking cheesy that, people think it's dumb, because that's the way that it's framed.
Yeah.
The way media frames things is so influential in the way that the masses see things.
Exactly.
And it's just an invisible pushing and pulling factor, changing how we think and believe about what world we live in, what we can do as individuals, and also what our community is, and what our identity is, who we belong to, what kind of person we are so intimately shaped by media, because media is society.
Yeah, well, exactly. Or it's media controls what society should be, or what it wants it to be. Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of I think that is one of media is a huge component as to why we are so fucking over shit, and why it feels like hope is pointless. Because it benefits those who profit from the current system to promote the idea that no other way of existing is possible, so we should just suck it up.
Yeah.
Just, duck your head down and go to work. In my notes I have, enter revolutionary optimism.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
you ready to turn it around?
The title of this episode is Revolutionary Optimism. What is revolutionary optimism?
So
it has to be better than that.
Because having hope that things can change. Wait, no. You segued better than my paragraph. So,
Okay.
revolutionary optimism can have like two definitions. One of them is to to believe that the revolution
Yeah.
is possible and it's on the horizon, which
Right.
is important, but that's
Okay.
not really the one that I want to talk about.
Okay.
The one that I want to talk about is to hope as a revolutionary action in itself.
Mm.
That having hope for the future, that things can change, is revolutionary in itself.
Right, because that would influence the actions that you take,
And,
obviously.
like, it feels like such a small change. Like, oh, just have hope. Then, it's like a platitude that you say when things are
hard.
bad. Because, like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah. But it's hard.
It is hard.
Like, 'cause,
it's
like,
really hard.
I'm tried to be a pretty self-aware person. And, like, if I were to just say, oh, yeah, no, I have hope. It's like, no, I don't. Like, I really, like, about certain things, kind of. But at the same time, it's like, no, that's a fucking hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? Actually, I didn't write it in my script, but now that I'm, like, talking about it, I think... So, you've heard the story many a times, but I had a person come into my life when I was in my bachelor's degree who really changed my outlook on life. They really inspired me to pursue music, which is one of the main things. But the way that they did that was... They were really, like, talented. Ugh, such a loaded word when it comes to, like, artists. But they were a very, very skilled musician.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not. I came in very underlevel, and spoiler alert, I had a learning disability the whole time that made it way more difficult to get shit done.
You also started flute, like, in grade 9?
No.
Even
I
before
started
that?
in middle school. I started in grade 6.
Oh, okay.
But I just never took any lessons.
No,
I
yeah,
didn't have
yeah.
any, like, help with that. But
course.
getting to talk to them and their outlook in life, to them, hope is one of the most important things in their life. They did not start out as an amazing musician.
Oh,
They were pretty average through.
Does.
Yeah, they were pretty average through through the beginning of their career, or their studies, and making the decision to do something is 50% of the battle.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they said. It's so much bigger than what we give it credit for, because you can think about making a change, about doing something. She's like, oh, I should really do that. I should really do that. I should really do it.
That's funny in the terms of ADHD. Because isn't that the whole thing? Like,
yes,
yeah.
yes and no. But, like, part of me had already given up at that point that I could be a good musician, because I had seen for myself, like, I was exposed to a narrative of nothing but, like, I'm not that good.
Mm-hmm.
That was the narrative that surrounded what I told myself, but also the feedback that I received from others, because I just didn't pick it up as quickly as other people were in the way that they could.
Of course, yes.
And
you
just
only value people that are
immediately don't need any help and can do it on their own.
Yeah.
And realizing that, like, I could just make the decision to choose to improve and to choose to believe that it was possible for me to be in a better place than I was currently at. That it wasn't just an inherent flaw within me. That if I want it, I can choose to, and this kind of gets into a little bit of, like, manifest, girl boss, mind palace your way to it, which
still,
I think is still valuable in certain aspects. Like, it's not going to cure your cancer, but, like,
and it's just as ways to, like, it's so funny how, like the whole, like, girl boss thing is framed, because, like, it is healthy, or, like, it just, like, yeah, you can do it.
You can
do it. It's cringy that way, but...
It's cringy, but, like, there's no way that I would have even started to work towards being capable of being a performer if I didn't first believe it was possible.
Oh, exactly.
I would have just kept on the path that I was going, because I guess that's what I was doing. Maybe financially it would have worked out better for me that way. But, like, it was very influential in, like, my character development.
Yeah, of course.
To realize that if I wanted to do something, actually sitting down with myself and deciding, promising to myself this is something that I want to change tangibly, instead of just being, this is something I should do, was huge. And it took a lot of courage to accept that it's not, like, it's very easy, like, if something is out of our control, then we don't have to feel guilty about not doing it. Accepting that it's something that we can do and choosing to do something, it's huge. And that's why having hope for the future is a revolutionary act in itself, because society is constantly telling us there's nothing that we can do. Don't bother. It's too big for you.
And of course they would.
And of course they would, because it benefits them to say that, to make us all believe that.
Yeah.
What do you think of my... I have another little monologue. Not monologue, but I have another little tirade, so... Any cut-ins on that plus?
It's like well, I don't know, in the sense of, like, sitting down and choosing hope and, like, what that means, say, like, for me, because I feel like I'm not there yet. I don't know.
It's a big step.
And I don't know, but then it's also like, I don't know why. Why am I not there yet? That would be better for me, technically. I feel like I would be happier, and in the sense of, like, everything will work out, but on a grander scale, outside of what I said before. But, yeah, I don't know. I think it's because I don't believe it.
Do you want to have hope?
Or yeah, like, I want the world to be better. Yes.
So to sit down and choose to want it, huge. You're not there yet. Do you want to be at that? Do you want to be at a place where you can do that?
Yes, because I want to believe that the world will be better. I really want to. But, like, logic and everything that I've seen is saying no. Going against that.
Yeah. So, and you know what?
Which I feel like is probably going to be a lot of people.
It's going to be a lot of people.
Life sucks.
Life does suck. Life does suck. Life does suck. It really does.
Woo.
This is a great episode for revolutionary optimism.
Revolutionary optimism, yeah.
So, when I was doing research for this initially, I came across this really interesting study. It was called... Oh, fuck. I don't have the title. Insert. I'm gonna insert it. Oh, I have the author title, but I don't have the name. It's Carolyn Sarajoni Hart. Her paper, How Do Aspirations Matter?
Okay.
And she kind of defines aspirations. This is off the noggin, so hopefully I'm summarizing correctly about what exactly she talks. So, to her, aspirations are kind of like a combination of both, like, our dreams and goals, the things that the things that give us hope, the things that we hope about, and that we at least consider trying to change in our lives.
I just have a thought, but you continue. Oh, like, it might.
It'll be a little derailing, but
yeah.
Okay. Her paper talks about a lot of things. Oh, this is the stuff that I kind of printed out here. She talks about a lot of aspects of aspiration, but one of the things that I think is the most poignant about revolutionary hope is something that is, I don't think this was her original concept, but she expands upon it, the aspirational window. So, the aspirational window is a concept that kind of explains how and why we set the goals and dreams that we do. And there's this interesting quote. It has a little preamble. I just summarized it so it's a little easier to hear. Academic text. She's like a pretty good writer, but even most academic text is like fucking.
No, which could be a whole other episode.
But it kind of begins with, like, most people have aspirations, meaning that most people are capable of imagining a different, better, presumably, reality than the one that they live in. And then, here's the quote. However, this tells us little about the full range of the individual's capabilities to aspire and the constraints or oppressive roots of aspiration that may not readily be explicit. Bruh. So basically what she's saying here is, like, just because most people have dreams and hopes and goals doesn't mean that these aspirations exist outside of the constraints or oppressive roots, aka the reality of their lived experiences.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And the quote kind of continues, aspirations are often born out of unequal power relations that constrain humans to mold themselves in ways that suit perceived expectations of normalcy and acceptability. So our aspirations usually revolve around things that we see that are not great in our current world, usually as a result of power dynamics and whatnot. And we aspire to overcome those in a way that still allows us to be accepted, aka will continue to work within what we perceive as normal and acceptable. So, continuing, thinking about future-oriented goals requires at least a basic level of capability in relation to being able to anticipate and imagine the future and exercise practical reasoning. Yes, it's just a continuation. So basically, people will aspire to what they think is possible given their lived experience, i.e. their material conditions. I'm going to touch upon material conditions a lot later.
Of course.
And the window of aspiration basically describes how people will usually hold aspirations of goals which are perceived to be within the range of what is achievable, while still being rewarding enough to merit the effort to think about it, to aspire towards it. And I think this is also another, the idea of the aspirational window is shaped by what we perceive as possible and will be positive when we achieve it, which definitely is why media is so integral to why our aspirational windows are usually all directed towards things that still benefit the status quo. Even if it's against our own self-interest, we will still aspire towards things that are seen as normal and acceptable, like goals that don't make us seem like naive, stupid dreamers, things that are actually, you can tell someone what your goal is and they'll be like, yeah.
Well, because strength in groups, right? Being validated for what you think because other people think it. Yeah, definitely. I think.
And I think this concept is also another reason why, people who don't understand, people of the dominant society don't understand why representation matters in media.
Oh, yeah.
And if someone who faces the same material conditions as you, if you have never seen them achieve something, if you've never seen it being possible for somebody who experiences the same things as you, then it is seen as being naive to dream about doing that. Because if you've never seen a path forward about that thing, even if other people can do it, if you can't see yourself in that position and the people in your lives cannot see you in that position, it no longer will work within your aspirational window, because it won't seem like it's important enough to merit the effort to try to achieve it, because it will so likely end in failure because nobody else has ever done it.
Or the people in power who see certain people achieving certain things and as an understanding, and then are assuming that other people can't do those things because I'm in tune of systemic racism and things like that, of just the status quo of white people being more capable than black people,
and then making an example of anybody who steps outside of that, so that people don't try to replicate that and overstep their bounds, so to speak.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's all ingrained in each other.
So your point, your tangent, mine just kind of...
Yes. It's just in terms, because of what we had talked about something a couple weeks ago of living in the future and versus living in the present.
Yes.
And how that, I'm interested if there was any touch on that in that in that reading that you did, or if there's anything that you have to say about it. Because in terms of how we were talking about it, living in the present is the more favorable one.
Psychologically, I think living in the present is a lot better because you can actually be, connected to your real reality.
But if your real reality sucks, sucks the big one. Aspirational thinking is the real, I don't know.
Actually, I saw a different thing around the same time that I was reading this that was talking about how some people will live in the future as a fantasy rather than actual goals.
Yes.
And there's a difference between actually having aspirations, i.e. real world plans to make it happen, instead of just living wouldn't it be nice, this is a nice dreamland that I can use to escape my reality because it is safe.
Yeah.
And I guess recognizing that's a great pivot to also bringing this all back in.
Amazing.
I guess revolutionary hope is not just hope that,
of like an idea.
we'll be in utopia next week.
Yeah.
It's the like...
Or like, that makes me feel safe because I can think about this.
Exactly, because it will allow me to escape from the horrors of the present. And I think when we get into the last little section about... I want to talk about how we can enact revolutionary hope. And I think now to touch on an important concept in revolutionary hope is choosing the thing to hope for.
I just want to clarify too, you're using revolutionary hope and revolutionary optimism?
Fuck.
Or is that just the same thing? Yeah, that's the same
for
thing.
For my purposes
if
right
you
now.
Hear that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes. I also radical hope and radical optimism. That
one's a little stickier.
Tricky, okay. The radical hope and optimism term is, I think it was mostly by like the girl boss self-help type beat. I think it was man, but it's man girl bossing, it's boy bossing.
Manifestation.
Yeah, that type of thing. That like just believe that you can be a finance bro, and you can if you're white and your grandma can loan you $100,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever. But revolutionary hope, which is more what we're talking about. Choosing to have hope that also like just recognizing that like small harm reduction is still harm reduction. Making small leaps just because it's not going to lead directly to the revolution next week does not mean it's pointless.
Right.
Is something else that I think is super important to realize. Like I said, with the one tile, making them clean the entire thing, like the small differences that you can make in your day-to-day life are fucking important.
Yeah.
Just because it seems far away, like it doesn't mean it's not a crucial element of what leaving behind this fucking rotten system is. That was your tangent, right? About the living in the future?
In the future.
That was a great thing to bring up. I think that was like super helpful to connect this into like actionable plan.
We forgot about I get points and shit.
Oh, fuck.
Do you remember that? I just remembered that now.
All right.
Wait, that was for my segues, I think, though. But like,
I think no,
still,
this counts.
Important, important critical thinking.
How about
too?
You know what? It's our first session back. Do you wanna cool 20 points for that one?
Yeah, sure. I don't remember what the points system was at all, but
I got 20 of them.
20 points. Shit. Okay, amazing.
I don't know what HD is, but I got 80 of them. Yeah, and I think also with the aspirational window is just like, and like the part about choosing to have hope is also like choosing to at least open your aspirational window wide enough that...
Open your ass.
15 points.
Couldn't help it. Sorry.
But, expanding your horizons. Wide enough that you could at least maybe include hopes about the future. And just recognizing, it's a scary process, but it's the only thing that is going to actually make a difference, you know?
It is.
And
people make a difference.
People do make a difference. Differences are possible.
It's the only thing we got.
It's the only thing we got.
Really.
It's the only thing. So yeah, I'm gonna go on to my last of my three separate pieces of paper because I did not want to retype it all. So, how can we as individuals make a difference without becoming depressed?
Very applicable to
Very
this moment.
applicable, yes. So, movements are made of individuals. In order to change the world, we have to start with number one. Exactly.
That was very like TED Talk.
So as we see, movements are made of individuals.
When you think of this.
But to change the world, we have to change ourselves.
So TED Talk. Oh my god, hilarious.
No, but it's true. We can't help others when our glass is empty. And that's the other danger I think that we see that also makes us kind of not want to get into activism-esque things, is that a lot of people who currently work in it burn themselves out.
Yeah, exactly. And then they burn other people out around them, and then
they put their whole pussy into it and stake all of their hopes on tackling one issue rather than obviously help when we can. And obviously people with a lot of privilege, this is coming back to telling people to just, like, look away with the Palestine thing. Like, obviously, take care of yourself. But also, like, recognize what you can do and what you are capable of, and be mindful of your own boundaries. So I read this other really great book called Emergent Strategies by Adrienne Marie Brown. I think that's, once again, I'll put it up.
Put it in here. Yeah.
Adrienne Marie Brown.
Excellent. I really like her writings. So one of the things, her book is basically about how we can organize and work towards a better future in a more practical way, and how, in a modern way. Her book was written, like, a couple years ago. One thing that I have a big pet peeve about activism circles, especially when you get more specific about communism, is that a lot of it tends to revolve around authors who have been dead for hundreds of years. We live in a very different reality than we used to, and I think choosing to really open ourselves up to, first of all, it's quite inaccessible. Most people do not have, not to disparage, but, like, the literacy to read books written in either, like, translated from Russian or were translated into English, like, 200 years ago. It's dense. It's like academic writing.
Yeah, God, no. I'm not going to do that. Like,
exactly.
Awful. Also, I want to point out white authors that have been dead for hundreds of
white
years.
authors.
Yes.
And I like that Adriana. I'm gonna put it up. I'm so sorry. She's a person of color with also queer, and has, like, the lived experience of working in many different places, and I think she offers some fantastic insights onto the state of activism and emergent strategies. She talks a lot about how organizing can happen without, like, centralized bodies, and how that people are collectivists, and how movements can spring up out of nowhere, or not out of nowhere, but, like, grassroots things actually arise, and how we can direct that power, and what we can do as people to create a better world.
Yep.
Definitely. And one of the things that she talks about is making resistance pleasurable, making activism actually a thing that feels good to do, rather than something that just makes us depressed.
Yeah.
And, like, she mostly, if I remember remembering this correctly, because I should have reviewed a little bit of this, but this is just coming from my memory. She talks about, just, like, finding more ways to make, like, for instance, like, if you're a part of an organization, making the meetings a nice place to be, making it something that you look forward to going to, making it accessible for more people, having a nice dinner with it, so that's like a potluck, so that everyone can go away with a good meal afterwards, or, really taking time to celebrate and cherish the victories that we do accomplish, so that it's sustainable.
Community.
So it's community, and it's something sustainable that we can just keep doing, that you have the energy to keep fighting for.
Yeah.
Another thing that she talks about, which is actually interesting that we're coming back to this, is fantasizing about the future as a revolutionary action. And, like, thinking about all the shit that's fucking terrible in your life, and imagining maybe, like, what would life be if those problems were not there, were not plaguing you as bad. And starting with the fucking small shit, because obviously there's only so much we can individually change, but, like, something that a lot of people struggle with is, like, loneliness. A lot of people, we live very isolated, atomized lives. Social media takes up hours of our life that, 15, 20 years ago most people would have spent hanging out with their friends in real life, or going to a bar, or a club, or a coffee shop, going to a dance, going for a hike, going for a walk, and we spend a lot more time indoors, digitally interacting instead of in person. Fantasizing about, thinking about, like, wow, I would love to have a really nice community around me of people that care about me.
Yeah.
Imagining that, and, like, really realizing, like, oh man, this is something I'm really lacking in my life. And thinking about a world that doesn't contain that. What does that world look like? Does it look like you living by more people that you care about in close proximity? Does it look like going out to see people more and more often? What elements of that fantasy can you bring into your life?
Well, see, and this is the thing, because I don't know, I feel like, and I think because of mental illness, where it becomes really, really, really difficult to do that, and because you, so I'm just gonna, like,
no brands in
it.
No, they gotta sponsor us first.
how you like with like self-victimization and then just like feeling sorry for yourself and how you get caught in that cycle where like thinking about that is then bad.
Depressing.
It's depressing because you don't have that.
Right.
And you're aware that you don't have that. So yeah.
It can be difficult, but you know, there are ways to engage, and it's probably more work than a lot of people think about. But like once you get there, it's it's easier to sustain. So like we moved to this new city. I have been kind of struggling with the fact that I'm a very social person. You and our other roommate are the only people that I know in the city. And like, I was like, I tried to find, and I think maybe some people just, maybe some people just don't think about this, but I was really looking for, like, I found that dance group, but the meetings didn't quite work out. And it took a lot of tries before I found literally anything where I was interacting with new people, but that organizing meeting that I went to yesterday, I'm like, they have weekly meetings that I'm going to start going to, where I'm going to meet people to talk about something that interests me, and I can see myself building a network from there and finally growing outside beyond just our little circle of 3. Or like, I've been like going on like dating apps and stuff, and like, even if it doesn't like, there's a whole, you know, this is also something I would find interesting to talk about like dating culture nowadays. I find it really interesting because, like, I don't know, I kind of struggled with it before, and then I kind of changed my mindset about it to just be like, I'm just going out to get to know people, to get a vibe check on them. Not going to put any expectations on it, I'm just going to like, oh, cool. More people that I've interacted with and talked to, and just like letting go of like a lot of like, obviously anxiety plays into it a lot as well, but just like,
and like the
fear of failure or seeming weird, or
like putting something bigger on it because of like the idea of dating and the concept of it and where it comes from and all that stuff.
But like in the 90s, the way that you filled your Friday nights was just going on dates with people. You know, it was just like a casual weekend activity that you did, and that's how I kind of have been trying to frame it for myself. I'm like, oh, I'm just going out on a little date.
Definitely.
Because I have a free time.
And I think it's obviously from where we come from too, where like that's not really an option. Because like just going on a date with somebody, it's like, oh, okay, this is this friend with this, or like it's one person removed, or you know everybody already, and so it's like, being it's an tough. Opportunity where you can do that, then it can be like very like validating and liberating. I suppose what I was gonna say. And just I feel like, you know, picking these smaller struggles to work towards. Another thing that she really talks about is like a lot of the activism that we see tends to be movements that try to cover too much with one action. And she used this metaphor, like, rather than having movements that are a mile wide and an inch deep, working towards movements that are an inch wide and a mile deep. Don't do everything at once. Pick a struggle, you know? Picking things that we can actually make tangible differences. Something that, like, an issue that I would really like to tackle, and hopefully maybe my organizing group would also be interested in tackling, or at least they're watching this.
If you're watching this, I don't know. Like, or just finding more common people to maybe start a second thing. It's just like, if we had stayed back home, I think something that I really would have wanted to work towards is the issues of surrounding homelessness. Because the solution is homes.
Literally. Like,
and if I dedicated my full-time effort outside of work, for instance, or maybe not full-time, but like it was something that I really cared towards working with, I know I could make a tangible difference in somewhere the size of our old city.
Well, and especially with something like that too, where like you've seen where it works in smaller cities too. Like I've heard of like cities eradicating homelessness, and so then you have a basis to go off of too. You're not just starting from zero. Like, how the fuck do I do this? Like, definitely.
Change is possible when we really target things. And you know what? And even if it doesn't solve it globally, your town has a much better outlook on life. People are not suffering in the streets because you took the time to pick something to work towards. And even if it doesn't like lead to Viva la Revolution, you are making your community more able to withstand disasters or resilience. You're building up the connection and the resilience of your community, which will only benefit them when things do get fucked.
Well, and I think of one person, if everyone did that, like one little thing goes back to it. Like if we all just come together and do your little thing, like that's huge change.
That's huge change. Like if we all just picked a struggle and found a couple people who happen to pick the same struggle, think about how much you could accomplish. And because change is possible. It happens all the time. We don't get shown that. Yeah. So the Revolutionary Optimism book that I read, that first one, that was the collection of essays. It talks about how like the West thrives off of the passivity of all of us, and relies on the fact that we're all nihilistic about change. And this person really advocated for people to just be more passionate in their life about things. You know, it's cool to not care. It's cool to not give a shit. People who get really up in arms, especially like if you think back to like internet culture of like Gamergate. I don't know if you remember that. It's just like, you know, the videos that would circulate about blue-haired liberals who screamed the loudest out of everyone, making a fool of themselves. It's cooler to not give a shit. Not giving a shit got us here.
Yeah. Exactly.
We can't afford to not give a shit anymore because we are all suffering. Even at the tops of our society. You think those people, you think the rich assholes who control us all are happy?
Oh, exactly. I know.
Being that evil takes a toll on you. Takes a toll on, like, your soul. as like silly as it sounds.
And also, like, so many people hate you. So many people have hate so directed, and like like Jeff Bezos, he probably doesn't even have social media or like go on. He has other people doing it.
He has assistants
obviously.
who can take care of it.
He probably doesn't even.
But he still is trying to go to space to fill the void that being a complete psychopath has.
Also, tangent. Did you see the thing about him not being an astronaut now?
Yeah,
they changed the definition.
Fuck space tourism. Why are you blowing a hole in the atmosphere just so you can like spend 10 minutes up there and feel bored? Anyway,
it's ridiculous. Yeah.
But, like, except, like, you know, we're constantly being monitored by each other all the time with, like, everybody having a video camera. And we all feel the urge to not be cringe because somebody could capture it at any moment. And being cringe, part of being cringe is being very exuberant. Being passionate about something is often seen as cringe when it's not at the socially recognized time or whatever. But, like, that instinct to call people who care about shit cringe only benefits the people who want to keep us the way we are. Because passionate people make changes. Passionate people do things. People who are cool, people who, like, cool as in just, like, don't give a fuck.
Yeah, and when they're able to. Because I would count on it that the people that are cool and the people that don't care are comfortable and are, like, rich. And they're privileged.
No, but they're like that instinct to be cool and not give a shit extends, I think, beyond class.
Well, like, but then like I think the idea of it then is like an aspiration towards.
You want to be at a place where you can.
And so then the thing you can control is your attitude of not giving a fuck. And so then that goes back to it of the propaganda and like into it because of
because we're taught that being indifferent is the correct response to the horrors of the world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When realistically, like, you know, you see all that stuff where like the rise of anxiety and depression is just a natural response to this world that we're fucking living in.
Oh, that's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other thing. Yeah. But like, we are meant to give a shit about other people's suffering. And that doesn't mean that I think we should just dive into it and let that depression consume us about feeling, you know, feeling so bad, or especially like, getting into white guilt too, to like a paralyzing degree where we can't do anything because we just feel so bad about it all the time. Like, doing what you can, even if you feel bad about things, like, it's so important. It's so important to do what we can. Pick a thing that you can make change in, because, you know, there are so many struggles out there.
Yeah.
And you can still contribute a little bit to those, but if you don't stretch yourself so thin, you know?
Yeah.
Mile deep, inch wide, I think is the way that we actually see change happening. There was another article that I read that was called, it was about combating nihilism. And it also, it talked about the fact that, you know, the progress that is being made is not, you know, it's not on the media. We talked about this in the media section. And one of the quotes that they put in there, which is, it's a song lyric, but like, the revolution will not be televised. Like, I don't know if you've heard that before. I don't remember what song it was. Anyway, I remember when I saw it. I don't remember off the top of my head. But, like, yeah, they're not going to show in the media the progress that is happening. You're not going to see news stories about the goodness of the world, but know that it's still happening.
That's interesting you say that, though, because I feel like that comes from a spot of, like, people got their news from television and from newscasters, but people who have phones and have TikTok accounts and have Instagram accounts, I think it will be televised. It's gonna be, yes. Because, like, and I think that is, like, going back to, like, the conflict with Israel and Palestine right now and everything, and how, like, we do know what's going on because of the people that are broadcasting it on their social media.
And before, like, that, like,
it would have all been shoved under. Yes. It would have been so easy.
If it was all on Meta, like,
exactly.
We've only really seen this media being able to be spread over TikTok because it's not part of the, like, the Meta conglomerate. People have actually been able to share it, and thanks to that, people have more hope. You know.
Well, and I think people
are actually making action because they can see that it's there.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's so. I think it will be televised. I think it'll be. I think there'll be. People will come together, obviously. I'll televise it.
I also want to do another episode that talks about just, like, you know, we jokingly be like, when's the revolution happen? I can't wait. But, like, I want to also take some time to, like, talk about the realities of revolution and what the fuck that actually means.
Oh god, no, it'll be awful. I know.
Yeah.
Like, it just, Well, I mean, that's one of my fears, right?
Yeah.
Like, and why I'm so scared, because that is what it's gonna take. That's it's gonna happen. Like, so.
There are many possible futures, but I think that'll be an important episode to talk about.
Yes.
So my last little segment that I have here is just acts of revolutionary optimism that you can start doing today. And I think the number one thing for people who live in the West, like us, who live in imperial countries, is to invest in your community. The more that you know about your neighbors, the more that they care about you, the more that you have day-to-day interactions, and the more roots that you build with people around you, the more that you share in common, and the more you can do collectively against our tyrannical governments. Because when a lot of the people who have really hateful rhetoric around populations that they don't know about, trans people, people of color, immigrants, they don't know any of those people. They've just been told to hate them.
Exactly.
If they were in community with those kinds of people, they would not be so loud about those beliefs, because they know that there would be kickback.
Yeah.
Because other people will care about them. Like,
or they would care about themselves.
Yes.
Like, it just, like...
being responsible to a community and having a community be responsible to you, it is... People underestimate the difference one person's opinion can make in a group of people, but, like, that, like, voice of reason that you can be to the people who care about you and the people that you're able to invest and bring into your community, it does hold it. It makes a slow difference in reshaping their opinion by getting to know people that have different perspectives from them, because the way that everybody's so atomized, like, older people are some of the last people that still have community because they are still quite technologically illiterate.
Yeah.
And because younger people are not joining those communities because they're all by themselves, they get very insular. They only hear people who agree with them. Being in spaces with them and sharing your perspective is introducing them to the lived experience of someone not like them that they might not have otherwise gotten. So this is things like joining groups in your area, even if they're not specifically focused towards politics, like gardening clubs or picking up trash with people. Like, I joined the people who weed the garden at the community garden by my house, and I got to, like, talk to them about stuff. And you know what? If I hadn't moved, like, a couple of weeks later, like, some of them I said a few questionable things because they're old people.
Yeah.
But me sharing my experience about a couple things, like, I know that would have made a difference in the way that they thought about certain things.
Yeah, very true.
Even if it wasn't expressly for the
Or
purpose of
invited back.
No, they're older people.
I didn't know.
Older
them,
people.
so,
Most older people want to have younger people in their lives.
Yeah.
Like, getting to know your neighbors is such a first easy step to building up community. Like, we have been like blessed, so to speak, to live in a building where this is the best building I've ever lived in. Mm-hmm. People actually came out to get to know us when we were moving in, and now we know the names of a bunch of people in our building and our neighbors, and I've never had that before, and it was my intention to come here and make an effort to get to know our new neighbors, and I'm so happy that we're in a building that already has that kind of culture, and I want to sustain that. So like, I baked cookies for all the neighbors, which is a lot of fucking work, but I'm glad I did it, because, you know, more people can see that other people care.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
And once again, like, all of the people in our building gave a shit about, like, they knew whose apartment had pets. Because they got to know their neighbors well enough to know what apartments to help in an emergency. Yeah. They know, they had the phone number to call the person to let them know that their building, like their apartment building was on fire. The other things that we can do as revolutionary acts of optimism is to take time to, like, seriously, like, think about a better world and to believe that it's possible to build it. It is possible to live in something better than what we have now. And I think really working on ourselves to a point where we can believe it is such an important step to actually allowing us to build that. Yeah. Also, talking to your friends about, like, your beliefs. Yeah. And, like, talking to your friends about, like, pointing out how fucked everything is and that change is possible. Bringing them onto the bandwagon of having revolutionary optimism, even if you don't use those words, I think is another seriously revolutionary act that doesn't take a lot. It's such an easy first step, and it's the little that I think most people will have the capacity to do, even if we have poor mental health or we don't have a lot of money or resources. Reaching out to the people around us is free.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, being kind and understanding of those who have less knowledge, ignorant older people. Like, we do have to be patient with them. They did grow up in a different world than us, and they're not on the platforms to learn more about these opinions. And the propaganda machine was even stronger before we had social media where we could independently talk to other people.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's hard for them to imagine something different than what they've known for the whole lives. And I think just holding space for that and slowly chipping away at it is
a lot of the time, like, they do want that too. They just don't know what they want. They just don't, like, the language scares them.
Yes.
And
because they've been propagandized.
Exactly.
A lot of them lived through the Red Scare, which is like the period where the Americans and also most of the other West put out so much propaganda against communism as this dangerous force that was out to kill them. Anybody who lived through the Cold War has so many red flags up about leftist politics because, you know, even if that's what they think it is, like, I remember talking to my dad about things and, like, describing what communism actually is. When I first started talking to him, he was like, oh my gosh, evil. And when I actually explained, he's like, you know what, that might be good, but, you know, it's called something that's bad. They should change the name. Or saying something like, oh, well, you know, good in theory, not in practice, blah, 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 that whole thing. Yeah. But just, like, having patience, if I hadn't explained that to him, he might not have ever thought about it in that term.
No, exactly, yeah.
And the last little thing that I wrote down for acts of revolutionary optimism that you can enact is, I think this is kind of a big one, is trying your best to live by your beliefs as well. If you want to see a kinder world, be kind. If you want to live in a way that's less lonely, extend a hand to other people that are lonely. Yeah. You know, if you think that, you know, if we need to live in a more generous world, be generous towards others. Like, I saw on TikTok, of course, a study that was talking about how, like, those, I think I shared this with you. It was like people who are friendly perceive the world to be more friendly because
I think you sent that to me.
If you smile at strangers will smile back, and you will begin to believe that the world is more friendly. If you believe that everyone's out to get you and judge you, and you don't make eye contact with anybody, and the glances that you look up are, like, suspicious, people are going to look at you suspiciously, and it's going to reinforce your world belief.
Exactly.
That's such an easy thing to start with, is when you're walking outside, just, like, look and smile at the people you're walking by. Be friendly, be kind. People want to hear what you have to say. And that's just another way we can start to change our world, you know, even if it's just the influence of the people around us. If enough of us do it, it makes a difference. But you don't have to be the one person changing everything, but
no,
it starts with us.
Yes.
And the influence of the people,
things.
you know, like the 7 degrees of separation. You know, the more we have way more influence than we think we do.
Yeah, definitely.
Any closing thoughts on this topic?
No, I'm kind of checking out. Yeah. It's a long time.
That was kind of long. Well, thanks for coming back to listen with us. It only took a year and a bit to post again.
We're gonna do it regularly. We have a schedule now.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna be able to post more regularly, and I'm really glad that we actually had the opportunity to re-record the episodes that we had done before, because I feel much more prepared to talk about a lot of these things, and I'm glad my initial concept for this podcast was to talk about things from a more like, I wanted to have very clear-sighted sources, which I still will have, but like I'm not writing a thesis. I don't need to.
No, it's more of just like so we don't get sued.
Yeah,
but, yeah.
that too. But just like breaking things down on a more personal level.
Yes.
In a way that feels doable for the average person. I want to extend a hand to the people on the fence, or the people who, you know, who just got radicalized. Now what? Here's what you can do.
Exactly.
Here's how I learn how to be radical in a way that is beneficial.
Be radical. Yeah, radical, dude.
Alrighty. I think we're gonna sign off. Adios.
Bye.
Okay.
Good.
State of the world got you down?
Yeah, no shit.
State of the world got you down?
What do you think?
Have you recently experienced the urge to join a picket line or read a message? State of the world got you down?
Boy, does it ever.
Have you State of the world got you down?
Yeah.
Have you recently experienced the urge to join a picket line or read a manifesto?
Yeah.
If this sounds like you, then you've come fuck you.
I did my part and turned away.